everybody. I'm here at the Missouri Botanical Garden this morning, or rather above the Missouri Botanical Garden. I'm here with Cassidy, who's holding the camera on me right now, up in the treetops, and Dave here, who is one of our arborists at the Missouri Botanical Garden. And this morning we did announce that we were going to go live at 10 o'clock. Well, it took us a little bit longer than we expected to climb up here. I have to admit, Cassidy and I are feeling humbled and impressed by our tree crew this morning. So Cassidy, do you want to pan down and show everybody how high up we are right now?
Yeah, Dave, you said we're
60 feet right now.
60 feet.
So we right now are in an Ohio Buckeye, again here in the English Woodland Garden. We climbed up here this morning, and we just wanted to take this opportunity during Tree Week to talk to you guys a little bit about the canopy here and some of the fall color we're starting to see around the garden. Although here in the English Woodland Garden there is still quite a bit of green around.
And actually, speaking of fall color, we can kind of jump in right between you two here. You can see a little orange, reddish orange through the branches here. Dave, what kind of tree is that?
So that's a pumpkin ash that we're looking at here. Yeah. And as Kristina said, we're up in Ohio Buckeye, and one of the reasons why I thought this would be a good tree is because it is unreliable for fall color, but I knew something that the Buckeyes, a characteristic is that they drop their leaves very early, so I knew that we would be able to get a good view of everything around here. So yeah, what we're looking at through there is just starting the pumpkin ash kind of color.
Okay. And we'll do a little bit of a 360 here, kind of show everybody what all our view is like. So from here through the branches, we're looking out towards the boxwood garden is in this direction. And then the Japanese garden is off over here.
The little bit of yellow you see flickering is a tulip poplar starting to turn.
Okay. And beyond those tulip poplars, there's a couple rows of ginkgos, and those are,
yeah, that's correct.
Those are pretty reliable for that yellow fall color. We're not seeing that much yet, correct? In these ginkgos.
Correct. Yeah, I think we're still a week or two out before we see more significant fall color. But since we got some rain recently, I'm hoping that leaves will hold on long enough to give us good fall color.
And that's like sort of part of the perfect mix, right? Is rain and or water, cooler temperatures, less light. I mean, that's what kind of makes for good fall color in the trees that provide it.
Well, the magic combination is warm days and cool nights. So if you have warm sunny days and cool nights, then that sends a trigger to stop processing sugars, and then they start evacuating chlorophyll out of the leaves, and then the other pigments take over, which gives you your oranges and your yellows. Now water plays a role, because if it's super dry in the fall like we had until very recently, kind of a moisture saving strategy that the trees will do is sometimes if they sense that they're losing moisture too fast through their leaves, they'll just go ahead and drop them early. So I saw that in tulip poplars a lot, and we saw that in some other, this Buckeye. For that reason and for others, there's also a fungal component there. But if the fall stays wet, then that can ensure the leaves stay on a little longer, long enough for that fall color to start turning. But yeah, the real kind of clincher is the warm days and the cool nights.
Definitely not a warm day today. And Dave, along with probably about a half dozen others here at the garden, is on the tree crew. So you're used to working at these heights in these kind of conditions, right?
Yeah, correct. This is pretty standard stuff for us. So there are 5 of us total right now, and we manage the canopy of the garden. So that means if trees need structural or aesthetic pruning, or if there's some storm damage, or in the case we need to do some removals, we take care of the trees, and a lot of that care happens from aloft, and we do it from ropes. You can use lifts too, but a lot of stuff happens on rope access.
And I imagine that quite a bit of that work happens here in the English Woodland. Tell us a little bit about this garden area in particular, like what, for people that explore here, like what makes it an English Woodland, what sorts of trees and understory plants will people see in here?
Yeah, that's a good question. So a concept we'll have sometimes is that an English woodland garden is comprised of plants that are found in England, right? Well, we would run out of species pretty quick, actually, with tree diversity especially. What the term English garden really refers to is goes back to Victorian times, when the English were some of the first explorers going out and collecting plants from other parts of the world, and then they made it fashionable to start having kind of global gardens, so to speak. So if you were really kind of popular gardener, you had plants from America, you had plants from Asia, from other parts of Europe in your garden. So more of an international garden. So it gives us, it serves as a good palette for our purposes too, because we're doing a lot of conservation of plants. So we're able to bring species from around the world that might be at risk or have conservation concerns and grow them in this garden. And the garden kind of consists of three components. So I have my canopy layer, and then my understory or like mid-story trees and shrubs layer, and then my lower story herbaceous material. So that's leafy plants that die back to the ground in the winter. So yeah, those are that's the kind of gist of it. The global collection of three different layers.
And I wonder if from here, Cassidy, are you able to see where the canopy has kind of opened up recently?
We might be able to see it. It's over here.
Yeah, just on the other side of that elm. If you look just to the either side, basically, so we would see that bald cypress kind of swaying in the wind. On either side of that hole used to be filled by a giant pecan tree that came down on August 10th during that wind event we had, the derecho they were calling it.
And so that is part of consideration with plant selection for the English woodland. I mean, I'd imagine most of the plants here are shade loving, and then when you lose a big tree like that, all of a sudden you've got lots of sun opened up. So
yeah,
you know, how does that play into the collection management?
And so that get around here. Yeah, so some plants are a little more sensitive than others, but a lot of that's something that's common in a forest, is for a large tree to fall, right? So for big, large amounts of light to suddenly penetrate the forest floor. So a lot of those forest understory species are adapted to getting a little more light than they used to. Some are sensitive, and there are a few situations where I've had to do some moving in an event like that. But for the most part, things are pretty adaptable. As long as you don't, because you have the remainder of the woodland, you have the remainder of the forest that is offering protection from the sun. So they're only getting maybe an extra hour, extra couple of hours. If you were to take some of these understory plants and put them out in a meadow or a prairie, that's not, with full sun, 8, 10 hours, 12 hours a day sun, they're not adapted for that. That's when they really suffer. So yeah, but for the most part, things adapt pretty well.
And let's just talk a little bit, as we start to get a little bit of rain on us here, about how we got up here in the first place. And again, for those who are maybe just tuning in, we're about 60 feet off the ground in this Ohio Buckeye here in the English Woodland Garden at the Missouri Botanical Garden. You can probably see in the shot the ropes that are hanging down. So Dave, tell us a little bit about the way that we got up this high in the tree.
So basically, your basic climbing system, your rope goes over a branch, and then you have a series of friction hitches. And the friction hitch basically allows you to climb, and as you move this hitch up, reach down here, you can move this up, and then when you put pressure on it, it'll hold in place. So you're doing kind of a leapfrog thing to get up the tree. So those are the basics of it, and there are a lot of different ways to do it, a lot of different techniques and styles. Arborists use, the joke I make is, people say, how many different climbing styles do you think there are? And I say, well, how many arborists are there? That's how many climbing styles I think there are. And not just arborists, just tree climbers. There are a lot of recreational tree climbing has gotten really popular in the last maybe decade or so, and it's been pretty fun to watch that. So.
And I think Kristina and I can attest, we're both amateur to this. This is our first time using a rope system for a climb like this.
You guys know.
It takes it takes some muscles I didn't know I had, that's for sure.
I think some muscles that discovered their own existence today.
Yeah, and that kind of goes, I'll see if I can show folks my foot here, but we have these
well, here's one too on my foot.
Yeah, these were helping us out a little bit here. What are these called?
So this is a boot ascender, and so you give me just a second, I'll open this up, put a rope in there. And so this just allows me to use this to push against the rope and helps me ascend the tree. Just one of many different styles, one of many different tools available.
And I will say I was a little nervous getting this high up in the tree, but I feel very secure. I mean, we've been sitting up here for maybe now 20 minutes, half an hour, and I feel I don't feel like I'm going anywhere. So that's,
yeah, you're not going anywhere.
That's and that's important when you're doing work up in the tree as well, isn't it?
Yeah, so the name of the game on systems like this, anytime you're kind of an at-risk work scenario, redundancy is a very important component. So you'll see, well, you can kind of see here, maybe you'll see in Kristina. No, let's go to Cassidy. So you'll see he has a climbing rope here, but then he also has a positioning lanyard. So he's actually tied in 2 points, plus he's sitting on limbs. So he has 3 points of contact, even if he's hands-free. And so for arborists, what's really important is that hands-free kind of work scenario. So let's say I've got my rope here, I have my lanyard here. This is important if I'm using a chainsaw. I don't want to have to be holding onto limbs. I don't want my balance to be out of whack. Because if things start to move or go wonky while I'm making a cut with the chainsaw, that can be very dangerous. Or even a handsaw, same thing. So you see here, by just a little bit of tweaking and manipulating the systems, you know, I can go hands-free and I'm pretty comfortable and pretty good balance. So, yep.
And I'll point out too, we're up in the tree, but we're not the only ones here today.
Hey Mar, wave.
So Marissa is also on tree crew, and she takes care of the Chinese garden and the Ottoman garden. And Dave, ground crews are just as important as the crews actually in the trees, especially when you're talking about doing work in the garden when we're open to the public.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're going to do any work at height, it's just a good idea to have support on the ground. In case anything were to go sideways, you have a lot more options available if you have ground support. Also, if you need things sent up to you, something that we run into is, since there's a lot of visitors that come to the garden, we have to do a little bit of traffic control. So if I'm up here doing some work, it's good to have people on the ground, just kind of communicating between me and them, and coordinating traffic on the ground so we don't have any mishaps.
And I think one of the first terms I learned when I started following the tree crew and the work that you guys do here is headache. Tell me about headache.
Well, yeah, it's a bit of an antiquated term. We still use it. So it's just a way of alerting the ground crew that you're about to drop something. So if I'm getting ready to cut a dead limb and it's going to come falling to the ground, I'll give them an alert by using the word headache, and then I'll wait to listen for them to say clear. And so what they're doing is they're looking to make sure the drop zone is clear. They respond by saying clear, and then I make my cut, and the limb falls to the ground, and then it gets cleaned up. What's in common usage, more in common usage in modern times, is stand clear below. That's the official vernacular. So if anyone from the ISA is watching this right now, stand clear below is the better verbiage.
Is there a particular season or time of year where you find yourselves doing the most work?
So we do, here in the garden, we do most of our work in the fall, winter, and spring. And a lot of that has to do with each member of tree crew manages another area. So as their collections start to go into the winter and they start to close things down, they have a little more free time on their hands, so they're able to donate a day or two a week to doing some tree work activities. How are we doing?
Oh, we're doing good. I just wanted to...
I'm just going to cinch this up. That'll make me feel better.
Dave's keeping me safe. Kristina and I is keeping us safe. I just wanted to kind of stand up a little bit here so that people can kind of see over your shoulder looking down. Again, just reminding folks that I don't know why we made the crazy decision to climb 60 feet in a tree. Well, crazy for Kristina and I anyway. Dave is pretty used to this. So let's talk a little bit more about what we can see up here. I mean, just right over here, over your shoulder, is this maple.
Yeah, so we've got a red maple right here. So it looks like it's starting to turn a little bit. Maybe another week it'll have a little more color on it. Usually red maples and sugar maples are very reliable for fall color. Japanese maple, a smaller tree, very much known for their fall colors. Right now in fall color, I've been seeing a lot of dogwoods. There's one, Cassidy, if you can point it just kind of back behind you, see those little flecks of red. That's a dogwood starting to come into its fall color.
There we go.
For fun vines, Virginia creeper has a really nice red, and then another vine that people don't think of being a nice vine is poison ivy. Actually has fantastic fall colors too, so you'll see that out in the woods. Fortunately, I don't have any in the woodland garden for obvious reasons.
And this is a little, I mean, we're definitely too high up to see it from here, but underneath us here, that yellow in the understory, that's actually the
those are witch
that's the
hazels,
leaves of the witch hazel.
Yep.
but I noticed some blooms on it as well.
Oh,
so
yeah, we're coming into their bloom season. Yeah, so you have for all intents and purposes, you have two main species of witch hazel. One will bloom in the fall and one will bloom in the spring. So they kind of, witch hazels will carry that bloom all the way through the winter.
Yeah, and so that's something I think for people that are coming here to see fall color, there are still flowers to see as well. And in that case, with that witch hazel, you get a little bit of both.
Well, and some of our best witch hazels are up in the daylily garden, and there are a lot of hybrids up there that are really stunning, have really stunning bloom colors in the fall and spring. And when I say fall and spring, I mean late fall and very early spring. So right around, and then all the way through winter, right around all that winter season, that cold season when leaves are off of most things.
Now, one thing that you've talked with us about before is the way that fall color can kind of, the timeline can kind of differ here in the city or even in the garden itself versus other areas.
Yeah, so something I'll have visitors ask sometime as well. the color up in Vermont, they're already turning, you know, and in fact some of the leaves are off. Well, when you're at northern latitudes in the season, the winter season comes on a little sooner, right? So the fall color happens a little. Also get people from maybe out west, Colorado or something, say, well, the aspens have already turned. Well, if they're at elevation, they're going to get colder sooner also. And then if we're looking just in the region between Missouri and Illinois, we notice about a week or two difference between when Shawn Nature Reserve will get their fall color on and when the Missouri Botanical Garden will get their fall color on. And part of that is because we do irrigate our trees, so a lot of leaves stay on longer, but we attribute it mostly to urban heat island effect. So with that abundance of asphalt and the sun beating down on you, you get a lot of residual heat coming off. So as a whole, the urban centers stay warmer than the rural areas, and usually it's about a week or two, depending on the season. There's a lot of variables there, but generally we get, you know, we'll talk to the folks out of Shawn. Oh, are you guys getting the color yet? Yeah, we're getting our color. Okay, and then we know we'll see ours in about a week or two.
So let me ask, I mean, we're surrounded by trees. They're all getting ready to drop their leaves. Do you just spend the whole winter raking here, or?
No, so there are large sections of the garden. We do a leaf pickup initiative, I guess you'll say, or project. So you'll see we have a big machine called a leaf vac. You'll see crews coming through. If you're a regular here, you've already seen it. It's big and noisy and dusty. And so we will pick up a lot of leaves, and then we'll compost those leaves and use them for top dressing the next season. In the woodland, I try to leave as many leaves on the ground as possible. In fact, I'll blow them off the paths into the beds, and then later in the winter, once everything's down, I'll actually add more leaf mulch on top to kind of keep them in place so the wind's not blowing them out of the garden. And the reason for that is because if you think about it, food for a forest is the leaves of trees, right? The leaves of the plants. Those are what's supplying nutrients to the soil. Microbes are breaking them down and making them available for plants to pick up in subsequent years. Also, the leaf litter on the ground does a lot in ways of weed suppression and moisture retention for the soil. So it just acts as a natural mulch. Yep. So that means I don't have to haul it away or pay somebody to haul it away.
Something that crossed my mind as we're up here, and again, this is a view that not many people get to see of the garden from this height. But something that made me think of is also the animal life that is sustained in this canopy. I know I see red-tailed hawks up here all the time, and certainly plenty of squirrels. Owls.
Barred owls.
So I mean, that's another layer of having a wooded space like this is just that wildlife support. Do you ever what are some of the things when you've done tree work that you've seen when you're up this high?
I've been pretty lucky. I have been in a canopy and had this is a couple weeks ago. I was actually operating a lift, so I was about 70 feet up in the tree, and just out about 15 feet from me on the end of a limb was a red-tailed hawk. I've seen barred owls, squirrels. Yeah, you know, something that arborists talk a lot about you have to watch out for is if you get up in the canopy and there's a hornet's nest or a wasp nest, that can cause a lot of problems. So you just have to kind of be aware and climb smart and avoid things when you can. That's where winter comes in handy. You can't see one now. The very first time I ever climbed this tree is up in one of those branches, one of those crotches up above. I found an owl pellet. Which is basically where they regurgitate the things that they can't digest. So it was a little package of bones and fur that it had left for me. Looked like maybe it had once been a chipmunk. And then you have I've seen a lot of squirrels build their nest up in here. So yeah.
And we have one of our viewers, Lisa, asked if the animals ever get protective of their babies when you're up in the trees.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I am a staunch supporter of leaving nests alone. If a section needs to be removed or something needs to happen and there's an active nest, I will rope an area off. If I think there's a hazard, I'll rope it off and inhibit visitor traffic before I'll pull that nest out of the tree. Because I think that, you know, we've already taken enough habitat from things as it is, so the least we can do is leave. If I'm in a position where I can leave something, and we're only talking about, you know, maybe a month or a couple months, and then I can come back up, and once the nest is vacated, then I can clean it and do the work I need to do. Yeah, it's easy enough to do. But yeah, so to answer the question more directly, I have been in situations where I've gotten close to a squirrel nest, and I've never seen squirrels, and raccoons too. Raccoons use the hollows. I've never had anything get aggressive with me, but they'll get pretty close as if they're asking questions like, "Hey, what are you doing? That's a little close for my comfort," and I'll kind of back off and work elsewhere.
So I'm going to point over here towards the south. Just one view. I see a little bit of yellow off in the distance. Can you kind of tell us what we're looking at over in that direction?
I think that is another ash. I don't know. I see a little bit of tulip poplar kind of closer, and then in the further distance, I believe that looks like an ash from here. Yep.
That's actually, you know, I think one of the prettier trees for fall color is ash.
Yeah.
I know we talked at the beginning about the pumpkin ash behind you that viewers can see that has that color. And there's a white ash in the Bavarian garden, so not too far from here, it's one of my favorite trees in the garden for fall color.
Can you get that shell-bark hickory? I don't know if we talked about that already. That's got
oh yeah, we can loop around to there. Yeah. Yeah, a couple of weeks ago there were some hickories that were bright yellow, and now they lost all their leaves, but not this one. This one's still turning color even.
Yeah.
So what would you tell people, you know, we talked a little bit about this being Tree Week, which is something we started a few years ago just to give people a chance to come and see the garden at full fall color. For folks that are wanting to do that, what would you tell them? You said we're not quite at peak yet, so when do you think's a good time? Maybe this weekend, or?
Oh yeah, just keep an eye on things. You know, it's kind of there's a sequence, right? So like we said before, the dogwoods and the Japanese maples will go a little sooner, and then you'll start to see things. I've been seeing a lot of sugar maples in neighborhoods starting to look really good right now. So that's kind of the next indicator. So yeah, just keep an eye on things, and you know, keep coming back, because over the course of the next 2 or 3 weeks, something will be in fall color. I've seen Japanese maples having good fall color all the way up to late November in some years. So yeah, it seems like there's always something going. Just like the bloom season, people ask, what's the best week to come in the spring to see the blooms? Or really the whole spring, something's in bloom, right? And, you know, if you only come once, then you'll see one kind of set of blooms, but then you'll miss a lot of the others. So if you're in a position where you can visit 2 or 3 times over the course of weeks, and you'll see different things in color. Best way to do it, I think. And get out to Shaw too, because that's, I mean, just the drive down to Shaw, the drive down 44, when everything's in full fall color. So if things aren't in color yet, consider heading down there. The fall colors there are phenomenal. So.
And we said this is a view that most people don't get to see, But there are actual ways for people to get into the canopy. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the garden hosts canopy climbs. So if you get on the website and you go through the education portal there, you'll see it on the schedule. So this is where we'll actually set up about 12 ropes and a big tree. One of the favorite trees we like to use is a big pin oak in the Japanese garden. There's also a big sweet gum in the over by the iris garden we like to use. So we'll get about 12 ropes set up, and we'll teach people how to the climbing basics of climbing, and then get them up in the tree. Sorry, I'm shivering a little bit since I'm not actively climbing. I'm starting to get a little cold. Like
Yeah, it's breezy up here.
Yeah. So yeah, look for that the canopy climbs. Those are a lot of fun. People really enjoy those.
We did have Greg, who's actually on our visitor services team, is watching right now, and he was curious if we're in the north or south half of the English woodland and whether we can see the stream.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we sort of can.
You can see the Headwaters Pond, I think.
Uh,
From over here you can.
Yeah, it might be a little hard to see.
So yeah, we're on the south side, but just about 30 feet off the main tram path.
Yeah, it may not pick up too well on the phone camera, but I know we can kind of see the stream from here. And let's just kind of give folks one more view. Dave, anything else you want people to know about the trees at the garden?
What should I say? Yeah, I don't know. I guess the best advice I give folks is if you come to visit the garden, take the time to take some of the smaller paths and explore some things and look at some labels. And another thing I like to tell people is, you know, humans, we tend to be kind of horizon gazers, right? We tend to kind of look at what's right in front of us, what's right on the horizon. Take the time to look up, you know, especially as the leaves come off, you can get a real appreciation for the natural architecture of trees. Some of it's the way they just naturally grow in their natural architecture. Some of it's quite stunning, quite impressive forms and figures. So yeah, look up a little bit. And that's where you'll see the birds and other fun stuff too.
Alrighty, well, I think we'll leave it there. Dave,
Yes.
thanks for getting us safely up into the
Yeah,
tree.
you're
I
welcome.
trust
This is
you'll
fun.
get us safely down as
Oh,
well.
for sure. Yeah, we're only halfway through it. Yeah, no, this is fun. Thanks for putting this together, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks to everyone who tuned in today.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, I'm gonna just jump up a little bit here and try to give you the highest view I can from the trees, and we'll say goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.